Hey, tonight we're diving into the eerie and unsettling world of Victorian-era asylums, not the kind of haunted house you might see in movies, but the real, historical institutions that housed thousands during the 19th century. It's not going to be flashy or action-packed, but it's going to be really strange, really sad, and really fascinating. If you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a quick like or even a subscribe. It helps more than you know and keeps this channel alive. I'm always curious where you all are listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. I love seeing our little global community connecting through these shared journeys into history. So now, dim the lights, get comfortable, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's take a slow walk through time. You're about to wake up in a Victorian asylum, not as a doctor, not as a visitor, but as a patient. And trust me, the moment your eyes open, you're going to wish they hadn't. The good news? You're about to experience a place that shaped modern psychiatric care. The bad news? It shaped it through trial and often brutal error. Congratulations, you've just been admitted to an English asylum in the 1860s, at a time when mental health care was still in its infancy, and the line between compassion and cruelty was alarmingly thin. The first thing you notice isn't the room itself, but the sounds-muffled sobs echoing down stone corridors, the sudden clang of iron doors, and the low, constant murmur of people whispering to themselves in nearby wards. Your room, or rather, your cell is spare. Stone walls, a tiny window too high to see out of, and a straw mattress that feels more like compressed hay than anything you'd ever willingly sleep on. There's no pillow, no sheets, and the blanket is stiff with age and questionable stains. Your clothes have been taken and replaced with a shapeless, itchy gown. You're not here as yourself anymore. You're an inmate. They didn't even ask you many questions when you arrived. Maybe you were brought in for what your family called melancholia. Or maybe you had an outburst in public and a constable decided that you needed help. In the Victorian era, diagnoses were vague and sweeping. Hysteria, mania, nervous exhaustion, religious excitement, any one of them could land you behind these walls. Even grief, if prolonged, might be classified as insanity. You might be mourning a child, and instead of sympathy, you were given a diagnosis and a one-way ticket to the asylum. Once inside, your treatment begins, though it hardly feels like care. The doctor who visits you in the morning carries himself with the authority of a man who believes he understands the mind, but his tools say otherwise. He asks if you've been sleeping, if you hear voices, if you've had disturbing thoughts. Then he notes something down in his ledger and moves on. If you're lucky, you'll be left alone. If not, you might be assigned to one of several treatments. There's the cold water plunge, a sudden dunk into freezing water meant to shock the madness out of you. Or perhaps you'll be given a purgative, something to induce vomiting or diarrhea. Because in the Victorian mind, illness, mental or otherwise, was often a matter of imbalance that needed to be expelled. If you're considered more dangerous, you might find yourself strapped into a restraint chair, your arms bound, your movement limited, not as punishment, but as precaution. That's what they say, at least. You might sit there for hours, maybe even days, and no one would think it cruel. They believe they're helping you. You hear the screams at night, some far away, some just beyond the iron bars of your ward. Some are from patients in the throes of panic, some from those subjected to the rotating chair, a device meant to spin a patient until unconsciousness again, for their own good. There's one man down the hall who recites poetry to no one. Another woman who refuses to speak and stares only at the floor. You're told not to talk to them. It only excites the condition, the nurse says, who walks briskly down the hall with a ring of keys and a blank expression that tells you she's seen too much. Meals are served through a small hatch. Gruel, bread, sometimes boiled meat that's more bone than flesh. There are no utensils, no variety, and very little taste. You're hungry but not eager. You've already seen someone vomit after a meal yesterday, and it wasn't from illness, it was from the food. The days blend together. Time stretches. There are no clocks, no calendar. Only the shift of daylight through the high barred windows and the rustle of footsteps down corridors. You wake again, though you're not sure how much time has passed. It could be morning, or late afternoon. The lighting never changes much in here, just a dull gray glow through grimy glass. Today, you're summoned for occupational therapy, a concept still new and poorly understood. You're led to a long, cold room where patients are expected to sew, weave baskets, or crush stones with small hammers. The belief is that idle hands breed madness, so the asylum tries to keep everyone busy. But there's little comfort in repetitive tasks, especially when your fingers are raw and your mind is elsewhere. The silence is broken only by the occasional scolding from the matron overseeing the room. She walks behind each patient, inspecting their work like a factory foreman, tapping her cane when displeased. You're not sure what happens to those who displease her too often, but you've seen some patients return with fresh bruises and hollow eyes. In the afternoons, you might be assigned to the grounds. Victorian asylums were often built on vast estates, the outdoor space considered part of the moral treatment philosophy. Patients were encouraged to walk, garden, or sit on benches and take in fresh air. It sounds idyllic, but it's rarely peaceful. You walk in silence, under the watchful eyes of orderlies. A patient ahead of you mutters nonsense and tries to wander off, only to be quickly yanked back by a guard. Others seem too tired or drugged to even lift their heads. Sometimes, you glimpse the newer patients, those brought in recent, full of fear, clinging to whatever hope they still have. And then there are the long-timers, the ones who've been here for years. They shuffle like ghosts, no longer questioning anything, no longer resisting. You fear becoming one of them. Back inside, you're led to a communal hall. Rows of wooden benches and a raised platform at one end where a man stands reading scripture. It's Sunday mandatory chapel. Even non-believers are forced to attend. The message is simple. Suffering leads to salvation. There's no room for debate or discussion. When the reading ends, a hymn is sung, but only a few patients join in. Most stare forward, mouths shut, eyes blank. You notice one woman quietly crying, her face turned from the nurses. No one comforts her. Displays of emotion are discouraged. Too much joy, and they suspect mania. Too much sadness, and you're depressed again. Best to stay somewhere in the middle, unnoticed. That evening, you're examined again. This time, the doctor brings two assistants with him. They whisper among themselves, glancing at you, jotting notes. You ask what they're writing. No one answers. They're considering trying a new treatment, isolation therapy. You've been agitated, they say, non-compliant. You know what that means, solitary confinement? A padded cell with no light, no sound, and no company. It's supposed to help you calm down, but everyone knows that most people come out worse than they went in. You try to reason, to protest, but it's no use. You're escorted by two orderlies down a separate corridor, this one lined with thick wooden doors, each one shut tight. They unlock one, open it, and motion for you to enter. It's pitch black inside. The smell hits you instantly, sweat and mildew, something metallic. The door shuts behind you. The silence is so total it feels like pressure on your eardrums. Minutes pass, hours, time has no meaning in here. You try to sleep, but your mind won't stop. Every creak of the floorboards outside makes you flinch. You're not even sure if you're still alone. Then the whispers start at first faint, like wind, but then clearer. Voices you recognize. People you knew on the outside. But they can't be here. You tell yourself it's your imagination. That's what they'd say too if you told them. But the voice sounds so real. You cover your ears, curl into a ball, and try to make yourself disappear. This is healing, they tell you. This is progress. After what might be a day or more, you're let out. You stumble, squinting against the sudden light, legs shaking, no one says a word. You're returned to your cell, a cup of broth left on the floor. You drink it in silence, eyes darting to the corners of the room, still half expecting to hear the whispers again. Sleep doesn't come. You've stopped expecting it to. The following week, you notice changes in other patients. Some vanish without explanation. Transferred, the nurse says, but you never hear where. Others return from procedures different, quieter, slower. less aware. One day, you overhear staff discussing cranial applications. They mention leads and electrical tests. You try not to listen, but the words stick in your mind. Electricity. To the brain. You suddenly remember a patient you hadn't seen in days, now sitting in the corner of the dining hall, head shaved, eyes unfocused, mouth slack. You realize then just how far these treatments can go. The next morning, you're awakened by the clang of a bellet's sharp echo slicing through the stone halls. It means inspection day. That's when the Board of Visitors, or perhaps a benefactor, or even a local politician tours the facility. The staff scrub everything clean the day before, dress the more presentable patients in fresh gowns, and instruct everyone to behave. You're assigned to stand quietly in the hallway as the visitors pass. You can't look too cheerful, they'll think you're manic. You can't look too downcast. They'll think the asylum isn't doing its job. It's a delicate performance. The group walks by slowly, commenting on the calming atmosphere and progressive care. They don't see the bruises, the forced feedings, the isolation rooms. Or maybe they do, but they interpret them as necessary evils. You must understand, one says to his companion, these people aren't like us. You bite your tongue. The day continues, and you're sent back to the sewing room. Your hands are blistered, your eyes sore, but there's no rest. Every now and then, a nurse walks past and reminds everyone, productivity aids recovery. You don't know if that's something she believes or was just told to say. You hear rumors from other patients about experiments happening in the basement, patients taken down there for cutting-edge therapies, only to return incoherent or not at all. You try to ignore it. Focus on your work. Count each stitch. It's the only thing that gives you a sense of control. Nights are the worst. That's when the thoughts creep in. You wonder how long you've been here. Weeks, months? You've lost track. No one will tell you. Your letters home go unanswered. Or maybe they're not even being sent. One night, you're startled awake by the sound of screaming. Not just one voice, several. Then silence. Heavy, unnatural silence. You sit up, heart pounding. Nothing happens. No one explains anything the next morning. It's like it never happened. One patient, an older man with gray stubble and vacant eyes, mutters under his breath about the treatment room. He won't say more, just shakes his head when asked. During the day, you're sent to a lecture. A doctor stands before a group of staff and a few selected patients, presenting the latest theory on moral insanity. He says it's a condition where a person appears normal but lacks morality. The crowd nods. He proposes new tests, more refined diagnoses, and offers statistics from recent case studies. You realize they're talking about you, and others like you, as if you're specimens. Later that week, you're told you'll be receiving hydrotherapy. You expect a bath. Instead, you're wrapped in cold, wet sheets and tied down to a table. You lie there shivering, unable to move, for hours. They say it's calming, therapeutic, but all you feel is frozen, humiliated, and helpless. Afterward, they feed you lukewarm broth and make notes in your file. No one looks you in the eye. You begin to understand that this isn't about healing, it's about containment, about control. The asylum isn't a sanctuary. It's a system, a machine, and you're just another gear inside it. One night, another patient confides in you. He whispers of a plan to escape. He knows a way past the guards, through the laundry chute. For a moment, hope flickers in your chest. But then, he stops talking mid-sentence, his eyes going wide. An orderly has entered the room. The patient is dragged away, his cries echoing down the corridor. You never see him again. You're more careful after that. You stop talking to others. You make yourself smaller. Invisible, time passes. Seasons change outside, but inside, every day feels the same. You hear rumors that new patients are coming in droves, veterans from recent wars, women who spoke out too much, children who couldn't sit still. The asylum is growing crowded. More beds crammed into each room. Less food. Fewer staff. More chaos. One morning, you're told to report to the examination room. A new doctor has arrived, eager to try modern methods. He smiles too much. Talks about science and progress. He asks you questions about your dreams, your past, your family. He writes furiously, then he nods, as if confirming something you'll never understand, and says you're scheduled for an intervention. That night, you don't sleep. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling, the faint outline of mold blooming in the corners. You wonder if this is it. If tomorrow you'll come back from the intervention like the others blank, mumbling, a shell, or maybe you won't come back at all. You start to forget what your own voice sounds like. You haven't spoken in days. Words feel foreign. You think of your life before all this. Was it even real? Did you truly exist outside these walls? Or has this always been your reality, and you simply forgot? The day of your intervention arrives with no ceremony, no explanation, just two orderlies who appear at your door and gesture for you to come. You walk between them in silence, your bare feet cold against the stone floor. They lead you down a hallway you haven't seen before, one that slopes gently downward. The air grows damp, and a sour chemical odor intensifies with each step. The corridor is narrower here, the lighting dimmer. Eventually, they stop at a heavy wooden door, unlock it, and guide you inside. It's a small room, whitewashed and echoey, with a reclining chair bolted to the floor and leather straps at the arms and legs. A third man is already there, a young doctor, smiling, clipboard in hand. Nothing to worry about, he says, just a little procedure. Quite safe, quite effective. You're helped into the chair, and before you can speak, the straps are tightened. Firm. Final. You start to panic, your breath catching in your throat, but the doctor's already preparing something at a nearby table. He explains that they'll be using galvanic stimulation low doses of electric currento recalibrate your mental state. You try to speak, to protest, but your voice is hoarse, and no one is listening. Wires are applied to your temples, wet pads pressing cold against your skin. The moment before the current flows is long and silent. You see the doctor's hand reach for a switch, and then pain. Not unbearable, but sharp and alien. Your limbs jerk against the restraints. Your jaw clenches. The world spins in static, then darkness. You come to sometime later minutes, maybe hours. You're back in your cell. Your head throbs. There's a metallic taste in your mouth. The blanket is wrapped tightly around you, as if someone had tried to comfort you, but forgot the part where they actually said anything kind. You're dizzy, disoriented. Your thoughts swim. Someone checks on you through the little hatch in the door, but they don't speak. Just a glance, and then footsteps fading away. The next day, your body feels like it weighs twice as much. Even blinking takes effort. You're not sure if it's the lingering effect of the electricity or the sedative they slipped you in that broth. You stop caring. Around you, the asylum keeps moving. The halls still echo with distant voices, keys still jingle, and nurses still walk past like ghosts in uniform. One afternoon, you're given a pencil and paper during expression hour. It's supposed to be therapeutic. You're told to write your thoughts, your fears, your dreams. But when you try, your hand doesn't seem to work right. The words come out tangled, fragmented, and strange. You draw instead. Shapes, shadows, eyes. The staff collects the paper afterward, without a word. No feedback, no interpretation. You're just one of hundreds now, part of a system too big to stop, too slow to change. You start to notice small rebellions patients hiding food, carving tiny symbols into the stone walls, whispering in coded phrases. There's a quiet resistance, but it's not about escape. It's about memory, about not letting yourself be erased. There's a girl in the ward opposite yours who hums the same tune every night, softly like a lullaby. No one knows where she learned it. No one asks. But you start humming it too, just under your breath. A kind of secret solidarity. One day, a new patient is brought in, young, frightened. He looks around with wide eyes and clutches a small bundle wrapped in cloth. The staff tries to take it, assuming it's contraband. He screams. They pull it away and find it's just a collection of letters. Pages from home. Someone, somewhere, still writing him. The staff gives them back. Rare mercy. You see the hope in his face, the kind you once had. You look away. Hope is dangerous here. It makes you vulnerable. That evening, while sweeping the corridor as part of your daily task, you find something slipped beneath a loose, tile-in old photograph. Sepia-toned. A woman standing beside a tree. On the back, a name. Eleanor. No one knows who she is. You keep it anyway. A reminder that someone, once, was real. Had a name. Had a story. And maybe, just maybe, someone will remember yours too, long after you're gone. That night, for the first time in weeks, you dream not of the asylum, not of the screaming or the procedures, but of wind through grass, of sun on your face, of a world that once was and could be again. Weeks drift by, and routine takes hold like rust. Wake, line up, eat, sit, sew, walk, sleep, repeat. It's no longer clear what's voluntary and what's commanded. You find yourself doing things before you're told, anticipating orders, avoiding eye contact. This is survival, not submission. It's how you avoid being noticed. You notice everything now, how the nurse with the keys always taps her ring on the metal railing as she walks, how the third floor creaks differently at night when someone's being moved. The smallest changes matter. They warn you. They protect you. You start keeping a mental map of the asylum in your head, the turns, the locked doors, the shortcuts behind stairwells, the areas rarely patrolled. Not because you plan to escape. That fantasy died months ago. But it's a way to feel in control, even just a little. Some patients become your quiet allies. Not friends, exactly. No one here uses that word. But companions in the silence. There's a man who always trades half his bread roll for your turn at the wash basin. A woman who taps a rhythm with her fingernails each time she walks by your door, just a pattern, not a message, but it means she's still there, still fighting, in her own way. One morning, you hear rumors of a death. A patient, the one who used to sit by the window and hum broken lullabies, has passed. No one says how, no announcement is made. Her bed is cleared by lunch. By evening, someone else is already lying in it. The churn is constant. You wonder if she's been buried, or cremated, or simply erased. But then, 2 days later, you find one of her hair ribbons tucked under your mattress. Someone saved it, passed it along, as if to say, she mattered. She was here. You tuck it into your sleeve and say nothing. The winter comes and the halls grow colder. The building was never truly warm, but now your breath fogs in the mornings. Blankets are thin. Some patients fall sick. Coughs echo through the ward. The nurses begin rationing food supply issues, they say. You begin to feel weaker. Your bones ache constantly. Even sitting upright is a chore. The staff prescribe more rest. That means lying in bed for 12, 16 hours a day. At night, the wind whistles through cracked panes. You huddle under what little warmth you have and listen to it cry like a lost thing. One night, in the middle of that cold, you receive a visitor. Not a real one, a memory. In a dreamer, maybe not you, see someone from your old life. A sibling? A friend? Their face is soft with concern. They say your name gently. Over and over. You wake up crying, not sure why. The next day, you find that the crying hasn't stopped. It comes in waves, silent but overwhelming. You hide it as best you can. Too much emotion draws attention. But one of the older nurses sees. She doesn't say anything, but the next morning, you find a small square of chocolate tucked beside your breakfast. Just a corner. Just a taste. But it floods you with memory holidays, laughter, sunlight through a kitchen window. It nearly breaks you. The days blur again. A new doctor arrives, young, eager, and loud. He walks with purpose, asks many questions, speaks of case turnover and data collection. He uses words like subjects and success rates. You avoid him, but one day he spots you. "We've reviewed your file," he says with a bright grin. "You're due for a reassessment." That word chills you now. Reassessment means new therapy, new trials, perhaps even relocation. He doesn't elaborate. You're told to be ready the next morning. You don't sleep that night. Instead, you lie awake counting cracks in the ceiling. 8 long lines, one running diagonally across the others like a scar. You tell yourself it's a map, a code, a way out. If only you could read it properly. When morning comes, you're led to the central evaluation room. The windows here are higher, almost cathedral-like, and let in pale gray light. A panel of staff sits behind a long table. You're asked to sit, to answer questions. Simple things: your name, the date, the name of the monarch. You hesitate. Not because you don't know, but because you fear answering too quickly, too confidently. You've learned that intelligence is sometimes seen as deceit. You pace yourself. Speak softly. They nod. Make notes. One doctor asks, "Do you still believe you belong outside this facility?" You pause. Look him in the eye and say the only safe thing you can: "I don't know." He smiles, satisfied. Write something down. You're dismissed. Return to your cell. No news follows, no verdict, just more silence. And waiting. Always waiting. Spring comes slowly, dragging behind it the final chills of winter. The trees you glimpse through the barred windows begin to bud, and with that change comes something like hope, but not quite, just a shift. The asylum smells different now. Damp stone, disinfectant, mildew, and blossoms carried on the wind. You start noticing birds again. They nest in the eaves and call to each other through the morning fog. Their song becomes your alarm clock, more reliable than the bell. You cling to their presence like a message from the outside world, a reminder it still exists. Inside, however, the atmosphere grows more tense. Staff turnover increases, nurses come and go. New policies are posted. There are rumors the asylum will be inspected by government officials, and everything must appear up to modern standard. That means changes in routine. Meals are adjusted, uniforms are cleaned more often, and worst of all, the patients are sorted. Sorted into those who can be shown and those who must be hidden. You find yourself in the second group. One morning, a nurse tells you flatly, "You won't be going to the main hall this week." No explanation, just a tightening of boundaries. That week, you're confined to your ward, meals brought in instead of eaten communally. Those in your section grow quieter. Something is being prepared. Then, one morning, it happens. The inspectors arrive. You hear them before you see them: boots on tile, polished shoes, the low rumble of official voices. They move quickly, like people in charge. They tour the facility, accompanied by the head doctor and 2 nurses. You're not introduced. You're not acknowledged. But from your place in the shadows, behind half-closed doors, or standing motionless by the staircase, you see their faces. Some look genuinely concerned, others bored. One man jots notes without looking up. Another stares at the cracked ceiling for nearly a full minute. They ask questions, but never to the patients, only staff, as if you are furniture, as if you can't speak or think or feel. Later, a nurse mutters that the inspection went well, that we passed. You wonder what that means? Who was measured, and against what standard? A week later, the changes begin. New locks on the doors, a revised schedule, efficiency, they say. Structure is safety. But the changes bring confusion to staff misplacing charts, meals arriving late, patients sent to the wrong wards. Some take advantage of the chaos. One patient vanishes for almost an entire day, only to be found asleep in a storage closet with a bag of stolen bread rolls. Another leaves through an unlocked service door and is found 2 miles away, soaking wet from the rain, but smiling. You, however, stay put. You've learned that movement invites attention, and attention brings consequences. Then, abruptly, a rumor surfaces. Some patients may be released. A pilot program. Early return to society. Reintegration. You don't believe it at first. It sounds like a trap, a test. But the names are posted on a sheet by the ward door. Only a few. You read it once, twice. Yours is not there. You feel relief. and guilt. And something else, envy, maybe. The ones who are chosen receive new clothes, haircuts, lessons in etiquette, how to walk and speak and smile like they've been healed. You watch them rehearse their roles and wonder if they're truly ready. Or if, like you, they're just performing. A week later, they're gone. Taken out through the front entrance, past the iron gates, you see one of them look back. Just once, then disappear. Life continues. Always. A replacement arrives for each one who leaves. The system keeps moving. One day, while helping fold linens in the laundry room, you overhear two orderlies talking. They're going to start separating the wards, one says. Men and women completely divided. New policies. You pretend not to hear, but that night, it happens. You're moved. No warning, no explanation. Just your belongings, what few you're allowed shoved into a cloth bag. And you're marched to another building. It's older, quieter. The patients here don't speak. They don't look up. Their silence is different than yours. It's not chosen. It's conditioned. You're given a bed near the wall under a leaking pipe. The mattress is thin. The blanket smells of vinegar. You lie down and realize that once again, everything has shifted. No familiar faces. No friendly rhythms. You've been reset, refiled, forgotten anew. Days lose their names again. The new ward is colder not in temperature, but in tone. The nurses here are fewer and sterner. No casual kindness, no soft glances, just procedure. Wake, dress, line up, eat. The voices of the patients are a murmur at most. Most stare at nothing. Some rock back and forth with mechanical rhythm. You quickly learn that any display of energy is unwelcome. It marks you. It pulls eyes to you, so you blend in. You mirror the silence. You copy the pace of their shuffling steps. There's an unspoken rule here. Stillness is safety. You obey. The doctor assigned to this ward visits once a week. You hear his footsteps echo down the corridor before he arrives. His approach has the reverence of a storm. When he enters the room, conversations stop what little existed. He doesn't speak to you, he speaks about you. He calls you by your patient number, not your name. He discusses your behavior with the nurse beside him as if you're not present. As if you're a book on a shelf he's deciding whether to keep or discard. Eating regularly. Sleeps through the night. No signs of delusion. Then a note scribbled. You're unsure if those are compliments or warnings. The room you now sleep in holds 10 others. Coughs in the night. Sudden twitches. Whispered prayers. There's one man who mutters a list of names as he sleeps. Over and over. A woman who wraps invisible thread around her fingers and pulls it taut until her skin reddens. One patient weeps silently, endlessly, into a threadbare scarf that smells of roses and mold. One night, you wake to a scream, raw and full of terror. A man someone you've never spoken thrashes in his cot. Nurses rush in. One holds him down. Another injects something into his arm. Quiet. Fades. The next morning, his bed is empty. You never see him again. No one explains. The others don't react. It's as if he was never there. This is the rule of the ward. Do not ask, do not remember. Your memories begin to feel like foreign objects. Sharp at the edges. You revisit them less. They're too painful, too bright. Instead, you collect small, strange things from your days. The way light filters through the broken slat at sunset, the shape of steam curling from a nurse's tea, the soft texture of the laundry cloth you fold each Thursday. These things become your world. You find meaning in patterns. The rhythm of footsteps at 4:00 p.m. The creak of the central door when it opens too fast. A patient who always tugs their collar twice before speaking. You catalog these moments like a scientist might study birds or stars. They anchor you. One afternoon, the head nurse assigns you to help clean a disused room down the hall. You're handed a mop, a pail, and a warning. Don't take all day. The room smells like age. Dust swirls in shafts of sunlight through tall, barred windows. You begin cleaning. It's quiet, save for the soft scrape of mop on stone. Then something strange. You notice a tile in the far corner that sounds hollow beneath your step. You kneel, press. It gives slightly. A loose tile. Beneath it, a cloth pouch. You hesitate, heart quickening. Then you open it. Inside, yellowed paper, a collection of pages, written in ink faded by time. A diary. The handwriting is delicate, looping, undeniably feminine. You read a few lines. It's the voice of a former patient. She writes of loneliness, of dreams, of a sister she hopes to see again. She writes of a nurse who snuck her jam on Sundays, of how the rain on the roof reminded her of her father's workshop. These thoughts quiet, gentle, utterly human, fill you with something unnameable. She had a voice, a mind, a life. And now she lives again, if only in your hands. You slip the diary beneath your blouse and hide it in your bedding that night. It becomes your treasure, your reminder. She was here, she was real, and maybe you are too. You begin writing again, just a line a day, scratching words into the margins of old pamphlets and crumpled medicine wrappers. Today, I remembered what laughter felt like. The birds called to each other at dawn. I am still here. You hide them in the cracks of your bed frame. Fold them into the hems of your clothing. Scatter them like seeds. A quiet rebellion. Not against the walls, but against forgetting. Summer arrives, though it's hard to tell indoors. The air grows heavier, the walls sweat, and the windows fog with humidity. The patients begin to smell of mildew and unwashed skin, but there's no talk of increased bathing. Instead, you're told to remain calm and limit movement. A heat wave has made everyone sluggish. Tempers fray. Fights break out more easily. One patient throws their dinner plate against the wall. Another rips their own gown in silence, finger by finger, thread by thread. You keep your head down. You've gotten good at it now. Your name, long unused, has become something secret, something sacred. You repeat it in your head when you wake, just to remember, just to affirm that you are still more than this place. Then one day, without fanfare, you're informed that a visitor has arrived. You're stunned. You haven't had a visitor since arriving. Part of you thought you'd been forgotten completely. A nurse escorts you to a small, plain room with a wooden table and 2 chairs. On the far side sits a woman middle-aged, dressed in dark blue, her gloved hands folded. You don't recognize her, but her eyes widen when she sees you. "You've changed," she says softly. Her voice cracks on the second word. "I wasn't sure they'd let me in." You don't know what to say. A memory stirs, fragile and dusty. She says her name. Your cousin. You remember now vague childhood days in a sunlit garden, passing sweets under the table, whispered jokes during a funeral. She reaches into her bag and pulls out a small package. She's careful, quiet. Inside, 2 sugar biscuits wrapped in wax paper. You can smell the sweetness before she even opens it. She breaks one in half and offers it to you. You take it with trembling fingers. It's the first real taste of the outside you've had in what feels like a century. She tells you she only recently learned you were here, that your family had stopped speaking of you, said you'd gone ill, that no one knew details, that she had to dig through papers, ask questions, write letters. She looks you in the eyes and says, "You didn't deserve this." And something in you breaks. Not like a scream or a collapse, just a quiet internal shift, like a lock turning. You don't cry, you simply nod, and for the first time in a very long time, you believe it. You weren't broken. You were misread, misplaced, misjudged. The visit ends too soon. She hugs you before leaving awkwardly. Over the table, but it's the first human embrace you've felt in years. She promises to return. You don't expect her to, but she does. 2 weeks later, then again, and again. Each time she brings something small. A ribbon, a lemon sweet, a photograph of a place you once visited. The staff begin to treat you differently. Slightly, subtly. You're allowed to eat in the larger hall again. You're offered a book actual print, with pages and spine. You're moved to a quieter ward, one with windows that open, if only a few inches. You begin to hear your own laughter, again quiet, rusty, uncertain, but real. The nurses notice. The doctor writes, "Improvement noted." They call it recovery. You call it remembering. Remembering what it's like to matter. One day, you're called to the office of the administrator. He's a stiff man, with small glasses and a furrowed brow. He tells you, quite formally, that your case is being re-evaluated in light of new documentation and testimony. You don't understand all the terms, but you understand the word at the center of it all. Release. The process will be slow. Months, not weeks. There are interviews, reviews, medical checks, but there's a pathway now, a direction, a door, faintly visible at the end of a long, dark corridor. You spend those days preparing in your own way. You walk the perimeter of the garden as often as allowed. You rememorize the feel of soil beneath your fingernails. You sketch the birds that land on the windowsill. You breathe deeply. For the first time in years, you are not surviving. You are waiting. Hope, once dangerous, has become a daily companion. And though you don't know exactly when it will happen, you know the day will come when the keys will turn, the gates will open, and your real name will be spoken as you step into the light again. The morning arrives like any other gray light filtering through the window, the rustle of bedclothes, distant murmurs from the hallway. But there's a hush to it, like the air is holding its breath. You sit on your cot, heart thudding, waiting for confirmation that this isn't just another day pretending to be special. Then, a knock. The door opens. It's the head nurse, clipboard in hand. She says your real name, and tells you, simply, it's time. No ceremony, no parade. Just a hallway, a suitcase, and a silence so deep you can hear your own breathing. You're handed your few belongings, a dress recently laundered, shoes you don't remember owning, a comb. There's a moment when you stand there, looking at the threshold, unsure how to cross it. The nurse nods once, then turns away. You step forward, out of the room, out of the ward, down corridors you've memorized like veins in your own skin. And then daylight, real daylight, not framed by bars, not distorted by glass, but full on your face. It warms your skin. You blink at its intensity. The gate creaks open, metal scraping stone. Your cousin stands waiting by a black carriagenaut, horse-drawn, but motorized, a symbol of just how much time has passed. She waves, smiles. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears. You walk toward her slowly, half afraid the ground might vanish beneath your feet. But it holds. Every step feels unreal, as though the asylum might reach out and pull you back at any moment. But it doesn't. The gates close behind you. A sound like a chapter ending. In the carriage, she talks. Gently. She tells you about the world outside the fashions, the songs, the changes. Women can vote now. There are cinemas on every street. People talk into machines and hear voices from miles away. It's overwhelming. You listen, but your thoughts drift, anchoring themselves in the simplicity of the wind on your face, the motion of the wheels beneath you, the absence of locked doors. You arrive at her Homea modest house with a front porch, a vegetable garden, a curious cat. She helps you inside, shows you your room. The walls are painted soft blue. There's a real bed, with a thick mattress and a quilt covered in tiny stitched flowers. On the windowsill, a vase of fresh wildflowers. You run your fingers along the seams of the blanket, anchoring yourself in the textures. That night, you sleep without interruption. No bells, no screaming, just the soft hush of wind in the trees and the rhythmic chirp of crickets. You wake with the sun on your face and, for the first time in years, without dread. In the days that follow, you learn how to live again. Slowly, you relearn the smell of soap that doesn't sting, the taste of warm bread fresh from the oven, the freedom of choosing your clothes, your meals, your activities, the shock of hearing your name spoken kindly. Your cousin takes you to the library, the market, the park. The world feels loud and fast and strange, but also beautiful. You start keeping a journal, just like the one you found hidden beneath that asylum floor. You write every day. Some entries are just a sentence. Others spill across pages. You write about memories, about things you never got to say, about the world you're discovering. You write about the people you left behind, the ones who vanished into silence, the ones who screamed in the night, the ones who were never visited. You wonder where they are now, if they ever found a way out, if their names were ever spoken again. On your 6-month anniversary of freedom, you visit the gates of the asylum, again to go in, but to stand at the edge. You leave a single flower at the wall. You whisper thanks to the woman whose diary gave you strength. And you promise you'll remember. Always. You return home with a full heart. You've learned that healing isn't neat. It isn't sudden. It's messy, slow, sometimes invisible. But it's real, and it's yours. One evening, as you sit under the stars with a cup of tea, your cousin asks, "Do you ever think about writing your story for others?" You consider it. Not for fame, not for pity, but for the ones still lost, still mislabeled, still waiting behind locked doors. And you smile. Maybe you will. Maybe that's the next chapter. Because your story didn't end in that place. It began the day you walked out. The day you remembered who you are. The day you became more than a patient number. You became a survivor, a witness, a voice. And in the quiet, healing dark, your story lives on.